Hey, this is Richard with Automate Everything. So finally, I'm going to do an update video to the Raspberry Pi head unit replacement video that I did about 6 months ago. And in those 6 months, a lot of changes have been made. So first of all, I'm using different software. I'm no longer using Crankshaft, I'm now using OpenAuto Pro. So that's going to be interesting to see the changes with that because it really is a more robust product and it has some really cool features. I'm also going to get the steering wheel controls working because I said I was going to do that and I wanted to, that was kind of my, hope that I can get working deal, and I actually feel like I have it working now, so that's great. I'm also going to show you guys the delayed shutdown, so I actually can shut down the Pi properly with my car. So I really got all the features working now and I want to show you guys how I'm doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically walk you through all the steps that are required to get the software updated and to get the scripts working and all the parts and updates that I've done since the last video, which is quite a bit. So first I got a couple parts here. So I want to show some of the parts that I didn't show in the last video, but are really essential parts to making this whole thing work. So first of all, this is a powered USB hub. So as you can see, it takes a 5-volt input. So the thing is that it comes with a 120 volts to 5 volts DC power supply. Obviously I can't get 120 out of the car, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wire, I literally cut the transformer part of that power supply and I just wired in the 5-volt connection here into my car so that I can just power it directly off of the 5-volt power supply that's already in the car. So this is a hub. I had a hub before and this is a new one. The old hub was literally about 10 years old and it was long in the tooth and it was starting to kind of get random disconnections. I just think it was way too old and outdated. So I'm updating it with this one. Let's see how well it works. I think it'll be just fine. This is a Bluetooth wireless. So this particular Bluetooth wireless adapter works perfectly with the Pi. There's no special drivers required. It's literally plug and play. It's cheap and it gets the job done. This is going to be for my hands-free calling. So previously in my last system, I was using a independent Bluetooth controller that was not connected to the Pi and was just connected directly to my head unit. It was really clunky. The gains didn't match, so when I was making a phone call, the volume was a lot lower than it was with my system volume. This is a much more robust design where everything is running through the Pi. So I can make phone calls through the Pi. Obviously my music plays through the Pi. Everything works through the Pi, and it's because of this controller and the OpenAuto Pro software that allows you to do that. And just so you guys know, if you try to use the Bluetooth controller that comes with the Pi, you cannot make phone calls through it because the chipset, the Broadcom chipset, does not support hands-free profile. So if you try to use the onboard Bluetooth, because that would probably be the first question people ask is why aren't you just using that one? Well, it cannot make phone calls. So you need an external adapter. No big deal. This thing costs 10 bucks. It's worth it. And obviously if you want a complete head unit replacement, you need to be able to make phone calls. So this is an essential part of that. So here are the extra parts. Now I'm going to start actually updating the software. So again, I want to kind of show you guys step by step what I'm doing. So first thing I'm going to do is flash the new software. Okay, first step is setting up the SD card. So this is obviously one of the easiest parts of the process. I've got a program called Etcher that writes to the micro SD card that's going to go into my Pi, and I just point it to the zip file that has the latest OpenAuto Pro and tell it to look for the micro SD card, which is right there, plugged in by USB, and I press the flash button. That's it. Starting, I will resume the video once this is done and put it in my car. Finished flashing the micro SD card, and before I put it in my car, I just wanted to do one extra little step. So I've got some custom scripts that I made. So you can see there's a camera script, there's a startup script, and some additional files that I customized. The boot partition of this micro SD card is actually accessible on a Windows system. So what I did was I went and I copied the files of the boot partition. I made a directory called custom, and I put my scripts in there before I put it in the car. So what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to manipulate the scripts, put them in the right place, and access them without having to SSH or do anything, extra to get access to those files. They're already going to be on the system. So that's just going to make things a little bit easier for me. So that's just a little tip. If you got any custom scripts or any customization you want to do, stick them in that boot directory so that you can already have them on the card and easy to manipulate. So now I'm going to put it in my car. Okay, I'm about to fire up my car for the first time after flashing the SD card. So as you can see, it's installed right now. I didn't show connecting everything, but it's pretty straightforward. I just plugged all the USB stuff that I needed to in the back of the Pi. You can see this little dongle hanging here. This is for the micro SD card. This is a little micro SD card extender. It's a really handy tool. You don't obviously need this. I put it in there because I like having easy access to the SD card. If you've ever installed one of these before, you realize how much a pain in the ass it is to get to the micro SD card once you install it into a back of a screen in your car like this. So I like the extender because it just makes everything easier to access. So I think that was another $10 part, and it works great. So here is my USB hub. This is what's actually going to be plugging into my phone. So my phone is actually going to be charged from here, which is obviously going to give it more power than it would be coming from the Pi, because the Pi is limited to, I think, like 1 amp. So using a USB hub like this, it gives it more power, allows it to charge, and still be used for Android Auto. It's really the way to go. This is just my microphone, and I've got a couple extra USB ports just in case. I plugged the Bluetooth adapter directly into the Pi because I felt that it's low power. I don't really need to access it again anymore, so it's best to put it there and leave myself 2 open USB ports. So let's fire on the car and see what happens. Okay, so that's a good sign. Again, this is me just flashing the card and putting it on. So the Open Auto software costs 20 bucks. It's totally worth it. It's a paid product, which obviously means that, you know, you do have to pay money, but in the end, you get a well-supported product. If you have any questions, you get support. You get the developer actually does a really good job responding to requests. I ditched it from Crankshaft just because the main thing that was really bothering me was that I couldn't get my Bluetooth phone calls working. And when I was working with the dev for Crankshaft, he basically just said, well, you know, tough, I'll get to it when I get to it. So when I switched to Open Auto Pro, I got everything I needed. So now I'm using this software, and so far I really like it. So it's your choice. Obviously, you can use whatever you want. So this is the installation process. You can see it's taken some time, but really isn't that bad at all. So you know, that took maybe like a minute, you know, less than a minute to run for the first time, and then from here on out, it's going to actually start a lot faster. So I'll just say accept. Okay, now I got to put in a key. So in order to do that, so when you buy Open Auto, you have to put in a license key. So no big deal, right? Let me plug this in here. You buy Open Auto, you get a serial key from the developer, and it's a long key, so it's kind of a pain to put in. But it's you basically just, you know, hand type it in like this, and once that's done, it's a one-time thing, and then you never have to do it again. So no big deal. I'm going to go ahead and pop in the serial number and get the software started up. Okay, once you enter the serial number, this is what you're greeted with. And to me, this already looks a lot like a typical head unit, so I already like what I see. So just real quick, you've got some applications here. YouTube, Spotify, Kodi. Kodi's really nice. I'm going to be showing that a little bit later. A web browser, if you want to browse the web when you're driving, yeah, that's really useful. Well.io, what that is that's an FM, or that's not an FM, that's actually it's a radio tuner, but it only works for European customers. I think you need a piece of hardware to do it. I don't use the radio. I never listen to the radio. People were talking about, you know, how do you get the radio on this thing? I think eventually the developer is going to support FM radio, so that's great for those people that actually want FM radio support. Me, I don't personally care. I stream or I just use local audio, and that's enough for me. So, but this is basically just an overview of what you get when you start the software. You've got some really basic settings here, but nothing much. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect, well, before I connect my phone, actually, let me go ahead and do some other stuff. So I'm going to exit out of here because the system isn't really set up yet. So I'll just make that go away real quick. So this is actually what you get. So this is kind of the Raspberry Pi Raspbian software. So the difference between this and Crankshaft is that Crankshaft doesn't actually use the Raspbian OS. This one does. And surprisingly, even though it has more features and more bloat to it, you would say, it actually boots up a lot faster than Crankshaft, which again, to me, just shows that it's a bit more robust and well written. So I'm going to just change these settings here. I'm going to change to United States since that's where I'm from. Time zone, I am Eastern time zone, so I can use New York. There we go. Next, setting the location. Okay. Now, for doing stuff like this, I've got this little keyboard here. You can use any USB keyboard you want. I've got it connected to my hub, and you can see my hub has got a power connector going to it right now. So that little thing there is going to the 5 volts power supply. So I've got that all working now, and I'm not getting any issues with, complaints about a lightning bolt or anything like that. So I know that it's all working great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change my SSH password. That way I don't keep getting annoyed by a prompt telling me to change my password for SSH. And then once I want to make any changes to this thing, I can SSH in from a laptop, which is really nice. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so I changed the SSH password, and I also connected it to my Wi-Fi. It just automatically was part of the setup process. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to a terminal, and I'm going to try to find out what my IP address is. So that's pretty simple, right? Just type ifconfig. And okay, looks like my password is 202.192.168.0.202. So now instead of using this kind of clunky keyboard, I can just connect from my laptop via SSH. So I'm going to start doing that from now on, because that's just going to be a lot easier to manipulate things. Because first of all, I need to get my scripts working, because right now, if I want to use my backup camera or do the delayed shutdown, those are all controlled by custom scripts, which I'll link to in this video. And I need to get that stuff set up. So I'm going to do that via SSH. So time to SSH in. Okay, so I use a program called Secure CRT to SSH. It's a nice software, but you can use anything. You can use PuTTY, whatever. So now I am about to SSH into my OpenAuto. I'm in my car still, and I just have my laptop sitting next to me. So I'll just go ahead and go in there, and there it is. So now I'm connected to the OpenAuto Raspberry Pi, and via SSH, and now I can start manipulating my scripts. So the first thing I'm going to do, remember I created that directory in the boot folder. So I'll cd to the boot directory, and you should be able to see that folder that I created while I was still connected to my PC there. So yeah, there's that directory called custom, so I'll go to cd to that. And these are the files that I copied off of my main PC before I put the SD card in there. So now I'm just going to copy them to the right place. You can put these wherever you want, because these are custom scripts. So however you decide to write your custom scripts, you can obviously use the ones that I created and then manipulate them to match your setup. I just have them in a certain place, so I'm just going to go ahead and put them in the right places, and then we're going to go ahead and test them out. Okay, so since one of my scripts is a camera script, before I actually test that script, it won't work until I turn on the camera functionality. It's not on by default, but it's really easy to turn on. So inside of the Raspbian OS, I just click the little Raspberry button, like a start button there. I go to Raspberry Pi configuration, interfaces, and here you can turn on some of the other stuff, but you can see camera is disabled by default. I'm gonna go ahead and enable that. So enable that, press OK. And then it's going to tell me that I need to reboot. Yeah, do that. Let's go ahead and reboot. All right, so I've got my camera script copied to the right location, and I'm just going to go ahead and test it out real quick. It's a Python script, and really what it is, it's just a modified version of the Overlanders camera script that he made. It's stripped down, it's simpler, because all mine does is that once the GPIO is fired off, which mine is on GPIO 24, I believe, which is my reverse camera trigger going into the relay, which I highlighted in a previous video. It simply just turns the camera on using the REST-bvid software. It's really simple, and previously I was using the functionality built in the crankshaft, but I found it was actually much easier just to make my own script. So that's what I'm doing. OpenAuto doesn't support backup camera support on its own, but scripting it is super easy. So you can use my script and modify it as needed. So I'm gonna go ahead and test it out real quick though. So it's simply just, since it's Python script, I type Python camera script.py. Okay, you can see it's running now. So right now nothing's happening. This is just the splash screen, but I go ahead, I put my car in reverse. You hear it kick off, and there's my backup camera. So now my backup camera is working if I put my car in reverse. So that's great. So the script does what it's supposed to do. So I'll test that, that's good. All right, next script. Okay, next is my shutdown script. So I just want to go over really what the shutdown script does is that I've got a physical timer relay in my car now. So what that physical timer relay does is that it's wired in with my Pi. It's the relay is wired directly to my battery. So instead of using the ignition signal, it's wired to the battery. And I've got a trigger wire coming off that. That trigger wire goes to my GPIO, and it's on GPIO, I think 23 or something. Again, it's insignificant. We can wire whatever GPIO you want. And what happens is that when that GPIO is sensed, it basically knows that the ignition is on. So when the ignition is on, it basically just lets the Pi do whatever it wants. When the ignition is turned off, the timer relay starts timing. And I have it set for a 1 hour delay. So what that does is that it keeps the Pi powered on for 1 hour after I turn off the car. And that's actually what I want, because say if I want to go to the grocery store, or I want to go into like a fast food convenience place, whatever, pump gas, basically the Pi will stay on for an hour. But I don't want it just to stay on. I want it to turn off the screen at least so that it looks like it's off, and that it also saves power. So what this script does is that whenever I turn off the car, it senses that the trigger wire from the relay is low, which it's actually high, which then starts the shutdown timer, and it'll also shut off the screen. So, and then when I turn the car back on, it'll cancel the timer. But if I don't turn the car back on for 1 hour, then it will actually shut off the Pi after 1 hour. And if you're wondering if the power that the Pi consumes is bad for the battery, I've been running this way for about 6 months now, and it's been just fine. So it doesn't really affect anything. The Pi is a really low power device, especially with the screen not running and just sitting there idling. It basically sips power, so it's no big deal. If you want to do something similar, you can adjust the time to whatever you want. You can make it instantaneous if you'd like. I like having the 1 hour. So the great thing about this is it's adjustable. So anyway, I'm going to test the script right now. So it's just a regular bash script. So as you can see, I called it startup.sh, and I'm going to go ahead and run it right now. So right now it's running. It's not doing anything because my car's on, the Pi's on. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the ignition. So turn off the ignition. You could actually hear the relay click. I don't know if you could hear it through there. But see, what it did is that it scheduled a shutdown. So that shutdown says 14:14. It's roughly 1 hour from what I am now. So that's great. That's what I wanted. So the screen is off. So it looks like it's not running, but it actually is running. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn my car back on. And see, it just brought it up right away. So I didn't have to worry about waiting for the Pi to boot up. It just instantly booted. So that's kind of like a little insta-boot feature. It's really nice. I like it. And the shutdown has been canceled. It doesn't really say it is, but it has been. But the script is working the way it wants to, the way I want it to. So that's great. Now I just need to have these things execute when the car starts. And the simple way to do that, there's many ways to do this. I think the most modern way to do it is to create unit files for it, and then just run those. I'm old school. I just add it to the rc.local file. It's really easy to do, and it works just fine. So I'm just going to do that. So this is my rc.local file, And you can see I just added the location of my 2 scripts. I kind of been put them in random places. You can put them wherever you want again, but really the key thing is to know is that all I'm doing is I'm editing the rc.local file. I added those 2 scripts in there. You need to have the ampersand in there. That's really important because that allows you to execute other items at the same time in parallel with it. If you don't have the ampersand in there, then it's a continuous loop, and it'll actually just it'll lock up your system. So you definitely need to have that in there. So other than that, these are just the 2 lines that I added, this one and this one, and that's it. So I'll restart the car, and then I'll make sure that those scripts are actually working without me having to manually execute them. Okay, so all I did is after adding those 2 lines to my rc.local file, all I did was just reboot the Pi, and I did that through the Raspbian OS. I could have done it from the console, wherever. So I'm just going to go ahead and test it by putting the car in reverse. It's in reverse. The reverse camera pops up. So my reverse camera is working great. And look how quick that comes in. I love it. It's instantaneous. So then I'm going to go ahead and shut my car off. Shut it off. The screen turned off. Turn the car back on. And the screen instantly turns right back on. So my scripts are working great. So those are my 2 custom scripts. Now really it's just a matter of just getting some of the extra features added. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the Bluetooth working right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. It's just like a single line because OpenAuto, basically they just automated the feature for it. So I'm gonna go ahead and